Oh, man. A wild day, a crazy day, a historic day of college football. This is what we love. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football on another Saturday wrap-up call-in show. Please give me a ring. Leave those comments and questions there in the chat. We will get to the comments and questions. Make them stand out with the super chat contribution, if you will. And again, we have left the link in the chat to give me a call. We have left the link on X as well. Let's get to the scoreboard on, again, a crazy, crazy day. Quite the history that was made in Nashville and other places. Somebody give me a Vandy helmet. Okay, here we go. Currently, we've got Cal in Miami. Of course, they're playing on the West Coast in Cal Berkeley. And right now, Cal leads Miami. How about that? Wouldn't it just be fitting if that one turned out to be another upset? Miami trailing by 4 points, closing in on halftime at Cal Berkeley. Arizona State and Kansas, couple struggling teams right there as Arizona State trails at home 31-28. Well, we've got 20 seconds left in the game, and Arizona State apparently with a football, so they are about to close that one out with a win as Arizona State is just on a passing touchdown. Look at that update. Sam Levitt to Jordan Tyson for a touchdown with approximately 16 seconds left in the ball game, and Arizona State, barring another miracle, should hang on for its first win in the Big 12, and Kansas could drop to 0-3 in the conference. Wow. All right, elsewhere, near the West Coast, we've got Arizona trailing Texas Tech 7-0. That game just underway. So my goodness, that's going to be a late one out in the desert. That one's on Fox. So maybe when we get done here, we'll be able to check out some Arizona Texas Tech football. Red Raiders lead at 7-0. Okay, the scores that matter that just came in. Again, Arkansas holds on to beat Tennessee as they make a stand in the red zone after scoring the game-winning touchdown with about 90 seconds left. 19-14, Arkansas pulls off what you would think would be the biggest upset of the day, right? No. This one I did not anticipate. That one, Tennessee, Arkansas, no big surprise to me. Arkansas has been playing some good football. They should be 6-0 right now. San Diego State in between with the score over Hawaii there, 27-24. There's the game of the day. Bama, Vandy, Commodores winning 40-35. Check out the instant analysis video that we posted on this one because we had a whole lot of fun posting this one. Bama had lost 3 times as the number 1 team in the country to unranked opponents. And I'm sure you know those 3 times. 1962 to Georgia Tech, 1980 to Mississippi State, 2021 to Texas A&M, and now add Vandy to the list. Vandy not only wins its first game ever against the number 1 team in the country, but the first time that they've ever defeated a top 5 team. Vanderbilt was 0-60 against the top 5. Clark Lee's greatest program in the country may be coming into fruition. Ohio State stomps Iowa 35-7. Georgia gets past Auburn 31-13. And on through the day, we will just take note of the Texas A&M trouncing of Missouri 41-10. Let's see what the AP voters do with this. Missouri, number 9 in the country with no significant wins. Sloppy play and marginal play against Boston College and Vanderbilt. And they go to Texas A&M and lose 41-10. Is Mizzou going to drop all the way from number 9 to unranked? They should. I don't know if that's going to happen, though. All right, let's get to the calls. And we've got DeReal MVP on the line.
Hey, Mark, how you doing this evening?
I am doing great. How are you?
Doing good. Trying to figure out who should be ranked where is going to be an interesting task for you, Mark, and I do not envy you because just coming up with the top 5 will lead to controversy. I don't know who's good. Outside Texas and Ohio State, I don't know if anybody can lose to anybody. I've got that feeling. And maybe Georgia. Probably Georgia should be included.
Who's still undefeated besides Ohio State, Oregon, Texas? Pitt is undefeated.
Penn State.
Penn State's undefeated. I think there's a couple other crazy teams out there. Duke
Miami.
lost to Georgia Tech tonight, right?
Duke Georgia Tech played Duke today.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Duke lost to Georgia Tech tonight,
yes.
Correct? Okay.
So yeah, Duke 24-14.
Undefeated. Yeah. Nobody in the Big 12.
No, Iowa State and BYU.
And BYU. Okay, we've got about 10 undefeateds. Wow. Yes. What's on your mind, Real?
What's on my mind is, you know how there's an old saying, if so much happens, then really nothing happens? Did everybody just go backwards and therefore they ended up in the relatively same spot as where they started in comparison to one another?
On a national scale, pretty much. Yeah. And people that laughed at your 8-4 possibility of Kentucky making the playoffs or a number of other teams. Well, every time a Minnesota beats USC and a Vanderbilt beats Alabama, and what we just saw a few minutes ago in Fayetteville, Arkansas, Tennessee going down, every time one of those happens, the likelihood of worse and worse records making the playoffs becomes more and more probable.
Right. I think the 7 SEC teams is also more likely because the Big Ten teams that lost today were bubble teams, whereas the SEC teams that lost today had margin of error because Michigan and USC already used some of their margin. So because they used more margin, they have either no margin and they're eliminated, or they can only lose one more game. Whereas Alabama, if they run the table, they're in. Same with Tennessee and Missouri. Now, I doubt Missouri's going to, but I could see, obviously, Alabama and Tennessee play each other, so one has to lose. But a 10-2 Tennessee or a 10-2 Alabama's in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sure. They were undefeated teams.
Right, but I don't think people think about it that way. People think, well, they lose to Alabama, therefore they're terrible, and therefore they're not going to improve and be any good. Did you see Ryan Williams, by the way, for Alabama? Just him alone, yes. Alabama's going to be fine. He's the best wide receiver in college football, maybe the best overall player in college football right now. He's unbelievable, Mark. I mean, some of the catches he makes, him and Jalen Milroe, the only reason that team is going to stay afloat all year, in my opinion, consistently. And they're going to win a lot of games because of that combination.
Yeah, when I considered their defensive second half against Georgia, I didn't make too much out of it at the time. I did to a certain extent to say, yeah, it could be a concern, but maybe that was just one of those games where it just got out of hand and everything worked for Georgia in the second half and momentum's rolling that way. But man, after watching them against Vandy today and watching Vandy put up 40 points,
Not a good look. I'll agree with that. Not a good look, Mark. And how much of this loss do you put on Kalen DeBoer? Because Nick Saban never had a letdown type of spot like this.
Yeah, I put the entire thing at his feet. He's the guy that runs the program. He's responsible for it. He makes a ton of money. He took on the gold standard in college football. So he has to take accountability for his team not performing against a team that, hey, this is phenomenal. This is great for Vandy. They are obviously tons better than they typically are, but nobody's expecting Vandy to take off of this victory. Yes, they beat Virginia Tech, and yes, they played Missouri close, but they also lost to Georgia State. This is, a pretty mid-level at best. If Vandy plays out of their minds, maybe they can reach the mid-level of some, thick layer mid-level of the SEC. So yes, Alabama and Kalen DeBoer, this is a crushing loss under the old format. Again, there's a lot more grace out there with the 12 teams. So it may not technically, and of course it doesn't technically knock them out, but of course it narrows the path considerably. And yes, it's Kalen DeBoer's responsibility to get his team focused and ready after an emotional game and a historic game because they just basically negated the Georgia win by losing to Vanderbilt.
Right. And Texas, I want to talk about two teams nobody's talking about real quick. Texas A&M is 3-0 in the SEC and 5-1. Indiana is 6-0 and 3-0 in the Big Ten. How come nobody's talking about them being a threat when it's clearly difficult to win any game?
Yeah, so Indiana's obviously not played the caliber of teams that Texas A&M has, who did lose to Notre Dame, which we're still trying to put together how good Notre Dame is. Because again, every time there's a result, we then turn to previous results and we see Notre Dame knocks off what we think is a pretty good Louisville team. And then Louisville turns around and gives up a ton of yardage and points to SMU and loses at home. But I think we've got a pretty good read on Texas A&M's talent. We know that. And that was the game at noon that I wanted to watch more than any other game. Now, I didn't watch it for long because once it got to be completely out of hand, forget it. Texas A&M's good. I'm on to other things. But I saw enough to see that when Connor Wigman's in the lineup, he's an excellent passer of the football. He's got an NFL future in front of him. They can do some things on offense and open it up and take the ball downfield, which, of course, complements Amari Daniels and Le'Veon Moss at running back. And they've got a strong defense. And, yeah, look at the SEC middle. Look at the Big Ten middle based on what we saw this afternoon with Michigan losing to Washington, who lost to Rutgers. Rutgers loses to Nebraska, and we could weave the whole tale. And of course, this USC game against Minnesota, I know from hosting a USC show and seeing comments that they were previewing the Penn State game in the comments section. You know, Minnesota was an afterthought to USC fans. I don't know if that was the case for the team and Lincoln Riley. I would hope not. He should be smarter than that. But Minnesota beats USC. After Ohio State and Oregon, I'm pretty much saying we'll see about Penn State against USC next week. Penn State, of course, would be the third seed in that situation. Take the next 10 teams in the Big Ten. Take, I don't know, maybe all the way from the top of the SEC because of what we've seen with Alabama and Georgia now. And we'll have to see with Texas playing some better teams at some point, that there's just a layer of like 10 teams in these conferences that can win at any time against each other.
Right. And that doesn't, I'll slightly disagree with you that Minnesota is in the middle. They're pretty bad. I mean, they lost to Carolina. They're not, I don't think they're good, but
they missed a field goal at the gun against North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina's not good.
North Carolina's not good. North Carolina's good enough to play a 1-point game with Duke, and we can continue that narrative on and on and on. I'm sure I could make it to Virginia Tech, who should have beat Miami, and so forth and so on, meaning
they played better against Vanderbilt than Alabama did this season.
Everybody in the ACC can win those games against each other as well. And we're seeing Cal leading Miami tonight.
Right. So why do you think that's the case? The middle is seeming to be more competitive than to the top this year.
Well, I think we would find something out by tracking the transfer quarterbacks. That would be one way to go to see if that's had any kind of an impact on some of these lower echelon teams that they could kind of broaden things out. And then I guess if there is a large pool of teams that are paying significant amounts of money to players, then it would make sense that pool is roughly the same for the bulk of college football, and therefore they can go out and get transfer portal players, but then they can't get everyone they want. That would be another thought there. I think a lot of things play into this, and maybe we might be overreacting. We might be sitting here, what would it be, 3 months from now, looking at Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia in the national semifinals. And they're all 12-1, 13-1 at that point, 14-1, and thinking, okay, well, it's almost like, I think it's been shown, and you would know better than me, that in the NCAA basketball tournament, that in the early rounds, it seems just to be incredibly topsy-turvy. And then once we get to the final 8, there might be one wild card out there, maybe 2, but the best teams in the country still rise to the top.
Yeah, more often than not, that's true. Usually in the basketball tournament, the 10th best team onward wins it most years. But Mark, did you see the final play of the Tennessee-Arkansas game?
Yes.
Where you watch? Okay, so 6 seconds left. Josh Heupel calls a timeout, and then they decide to run the quarterback out of bounds with no time. I think that's a complete disaster all around. What are your thoughts?
Well, let's go back one play before that. It was a very odd situation because it was not discernible to Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler, or to myself, what happened. And if anybody saw that, there's like 11 seconds left in the game, and the snap hits Nico basically in the chest and just ricochets to the running back, Dylan Sampson, who then has no choice but to just take off with the football. And the initial thought is, why are they running the football with 11 seconds left in the game out at the 25-yard line? But they had to. So anyway, it sets up 6 seconds left. And unless you're going to throw, you basically have to gear yourself up for final play. There is a possibility that if you would throw to a streaking wide receiver to the corner of the end zone, that you could get that done in 4 to 5 seconds, come back for another play. But most likely you got to play it like it's your final play. And I'm just going to not be extremely critical, although you would think that, especially with the helmet communication being what it is now, that the coaches would beat that into a young quarterback's head, or any quarterback. You have to throw the football. It has to be thrown into the end zone, unless you got some guys, running a crossing route at the 1-yard line, that you've got to throw the ball into the end zone. You've got to throw the ball. But he did what we've seen from time to time. Shoot, Joe Milton did for the same Tennessee team like 2 years ago against Ole Miss, ran the ball out of bounds with no time left in the game in the red zone and lost the game. I just think it's a young player just forgetting the moment. How, I don't get it, but I've never been in that position myself.
Right. It is weird, as you mentioned earlier, that it has happened twice now under Josh Heupel. This basically exact same situation has happened, because I can't recall any other time this has happened where you lose on a voluntarily, almost, where you just run out of bounds with no time left.
Yeah, I think it has happened. I'm not coming up with any other specific times. Yeah. You got to throw the ball in the end zone, even if, and Chris Fowler made a point of that. And Kirk Herbstreit, for a while, was making a lot of excuses like, well, because they had this particular coverage and everybody, and their first option was to the left, and then he was forced to go to the right. So then he had nobody open. Well, it doesn't matter who's open. Nobody needs to be open. You cannot win the football game by running out of bounds. You have to throw the football up into the air. I would sky the ball. Like, if nobody's open, like you can't make a reasonable pass to somebody who's kind of open, then I would trust my receivers with a jump ball. I wouldn't even try to drill it in to anyone. Again, unless it's a reasonable shot, I'd throw a complete jump ball. I would lob it about as high as you possibly could into the end zone, hoping that my receivers are more athletic and more skilled in catching a football than a bunch of defensive backs, and that they would jump up and catch the ball. And if not, it might get tipped to somebody else.
Right.
Kind of the point of the Hail Mary is
right.
Basically what I'm describing.
Right. And he described the origin of the Hail Mary, Mark. Good for you. Did you watch any of the Washington-Michigan game?
Yes.
Okay, so Mark, you know the old saying, if you got two quarterbacks, you got no quarterbacks?
Yes.
So what happens if you have three quarterbacks?
Then you have a mess, is what you have. And that's what Michigan has. They have a mess of marginal quarterbacks, to be kind. They don't have any good quarterbacks. They have MAC level quarterbacks. They have 3 of them.
So I'm going to take it you weren't impressed with Tuttle's performance tonight.
Well, at first, he kind of jump-started the offense a little bit. And this is a guy that was a 4-star quarterback who originally signed at Utah, was expected to be the next quarterback in line, never won the job, transferred to Indiana, partially won the job. He was the next in line after Michael Penix. Kind of injuries got in the way. Other quarterbacks, Peyton Ramsey comes to mind, beat him out for the job. So he was never able to win the job. And if anybody looks up his stats at Indiana, you will not be impressed. And then he goes to Michigan, and he's been a backup for 2 years at Michigan. But they had no other options at that point. I think what Sharon Moore's thinking at this stage of the game is that, well, we try Davis Warren, and he's a turnover machine. Yes, he can capably throw the ball downfield, but when you throw it to the other guy 6 times in 3 games, it doesn't matter if you're Brett Favre, and you may well be Brett Favre if you're doing that. And then obviously Alex Orji just makes he just limits the whole situation way too much and makes it so easy on defensive coordinators to prepare for that team that you go to Tuttle. And Tuttle's been injured. This is the first week he's been cleared. So maybe they would have gone to him. Maybe he would have initially won the job, but he has not been healthy this entire time. But still a very marginal, mediocre, awful, poor option for a Big Ten football team, let alone the status of Michigan.
Would you say it's Iowa-esque?
It's current Iowa-esque. It's not as bad as Iowa-esque of the last 3 or 4 years. That's inconceivable for anyone to reach. But yeah, if you would compare Michigan's offense right now and Iowa's offense, yeah, it's pretty much the same offense.
Right. I hope you got your psychiatrist hat on for Steve Day. So I'm sure he's going to need a lot of consoling on Tuesday.
Like every way I turn this week, I'm going to need that. Whether I'm doing the Iowa show, doing the USC show, doing the Michigan podcast with Steve Dace, wherever I turn this week, Florida State, who knows, maybe Miami, I'm going to have to, console quite a few souls this week.
Score update, Mark, in that game, by the way. It's 21-10 Cal with 2 minutes to go.
Wow. Okay.
In the first half.
Sure. Okay.
So you may have to console the Miami fan base as well. But Florida State at least gives you some practice on. And because, they keep losing. So at least some things in college football stay the same. Florida State's still terrible. They still don't have anybody worth anything. So, it's nice to have some consistency around here.
Yeah. The state of Florida is quite consistent, and Florida kind of brought down UCF and elevated themselves slightly. So you've got a lot of bad football in Florida outside of Miami, but yes, down by 11. And this in no way surprises me either. Cal's not a horrible football team. And as you well know, the Miami fan base seems to think a lot of this football team, and I do as well. I am partially sold. I've been reluctant for good reason, but all they needed to do was win 2 or 3 football games, and they have been just punching their ticket to wherever the national championship games played this year.
Right. I've been on here long enough to understand their complete and utter rationality. It rivals the Tennessee fan base only. Final thing I'll say, Mark, is in the Washington-Michigan game, in the 4th and inches, the center moved the ball up about a half a yard, and then the ref said the play is dead. How is that not a penalty? to just blatantly move the ball up to where it's first down. Like if a false start is a penalty, they don't say, hey, don't, you can't move before the snap. But you directly impact the play by moving the ball up a full half a yard to where it would matter. How is that not a penalty?
So I'm watching the two games at the same time, and I knew that there was some kind of controversy around that play. I saw that it was fourth down forever, and I see all sorts of, conversations and meetings being held. So I did not see that. So was it the center while they were in formation? Like moving?
Yeah. He literally wiggled the ball up from the 34.5 yard line to the 35-yard line.
Now, I don't know. Are you talking about, and again, while they're in formation before they run the play?
Correct.
Yes. Now, how does that positively impact the play if you're still snapping the ball backwards? Why would anyone do that?
I don't know. Well, maybe it's less distance or something, but he did wiggle. In my opinion, I mean, it felt like it was an awfully convenient spot to make that type of mistake, Mark, if it was a genuine mistake. But I felt like maybe they thought they can get some sort of advantage. I mean, Mark, this is the same football program that uses a Where's Waldo character last year. So, nothing is past them. I can't put anything past
them. Okay. Yeah, I didn't come across that, but I would think the advantage would be moving the football after the play, not which, by the way, Malachi Moore of Alabama, I don't know if you saw what he did in the waning seconds of the game against Vanderbilt.
Yeah, he kicked the ball.
Yeah.
Real class act there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe if they showed that passion at any point against Vanderbilt, they probably would have done better, especially that defense. And they've given up 37 points a game the last two games. Not a great look for them.
No, it's going to be a topsy-turvy season here. This is getting interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Mark, and good luck consoling every fan base that calls in.
Thanks to Real. Appreciate it. The Real MVP breaking down things for us, giving his take, and follow suit here. Give me a call. The link is in the chat. We may need to drop it in there once again. We'll go through the scores, and of course, I will give my take on all of this. All right. While we wait for your comments and questions and calls, let's go to the top right here. So we've got, this fascinates me. This is an ACC game, of course, now. Miami goes out to Cal. They haven't been to the West Coast since 2000. Miami's last regular season game. And this was an Aflac trivia question tonight, and I felt pretty good about myself because I actually made this up a few days ago. Not that there aren't other people in America that came across the same conclusion, but I thought, when was the last time that Miami went to the West Coast during the regular season? The year 2000, they went to Washington. They lost, and that's the year that Miami beat Florida State, but Washington beat Miami. Probably Washington should have played in the BCS championship game, but it was Florida State. And Miami fans, many of them claim that they should have played in the championship game against Oklahoma, but that's the last time. And now we've got a score of 21-10 there. Now, Miami took the first drive down the field and scored pretty easily, and then Cal came right back. The Cal quarterback, Mendoza, is from Columbus High School in Miami, and he fired a touchdown to the tight end who nobody cared to cover. And he raced for a touchdown. And then there was a key play in which Miami was going for it on 4th and 2. And this Cal defensive back came out of nowhere. This guy made a brilliant play because Miami had a nice little flare pass out to the tight end in the right flat. It looked like he was home free to pick up the 2 yards for the first down. And this Cal defensive back just flipped him on his head. And that turned the ball over on downs back to Cal, and then boom, they hit another deep shot to go up 14-7. So we've got Cal in the lead at 21-10, and again, Texas Tech leads Arizona 7-3, and that should be our latest game of the night as they are just starting the second quarter. All right, let's get to the phone lines. We've got Michael on the line. Michael, what's going on tonight?
Hey, Mark, I pronounced Purdue football dead this afternoon at 1:35.
When did they kick off?
At noon.
Oh, did it take that long?
Yeah. It was back and forth game going weird at first and stuff. It was 14-6. And the next thing you know, a couple plays here, and next thing you know, they did something. I can't remember. I think it was, but Wisconsin drove down, made it 21-6 at halftime, and then scored at the beginning of the third quarter. When it got to 21-6, I pretty much pronounced them dead for the season. Because, in my opinion, I think the defense just said the heck with it. If the offense ain't going to do nothing, why should we even bother?
Well, hopefully they're not thinking that. But, folks, if you're not aware, because I'm guessing that not a whole lot of people were too interested in this game. Yes, Purdue put up another clunker, 52-6 to a not very good Wisconsin team. Mm-hmm. Man, you've asked me a few times about Ryan Walters' future, and I've told you that he should be safe this season.
I don't think he's safe.
I don't think he's safe either, because I was not anticipating that they couldn't score more than 10 points a game.
Yeah, I know. And 4 straight blowouts, too. Well, would you consider last week's game a blowout, though, 28-10?
Yeah, it was 28-3 with a minute left.
Yeah, well, I guess you could say that. 4 straight blowouts, though, man. Defense, I think they just said, hey, if we're gonna be stuck out here all the time, why should we bother trying to stop them if they're not going to? But it is what it is. But the thing I'm trying to figure out, though, is how was it? People were saying before the season started, Purdue might finish 4-8 or 5-7, and I asked you this before, but yet be better than they were last year. What were they smoking? These guys needed to take a drug test.
So they should have to take a drug test because they actually thought that Purdue was going to be better, or that they would have the same record and be better?
No, or the same record as last year, but be better.
Well, a football team can be better and have the same record.
I'd like to know how, though.
Okay. If Purdue or any team went 4-8 the previous year and lost every game by 50 points, and then this year played the same schedule and lost every game by 1 point, you don't think that team would be better?
Oh, yeah, I see. Okay, I see your point like that, though. But I mean, I don't know, and stuff like that. I'm glad basketball season is just around the corner and stuff like that. But moving on, congrats to Vandy and stuff like that. I kept telling people the last couple of days, these Alabama fans, I thought they was going to go in and win, but they was going to have a slow start in the first half and then turn around and just dominate the second half, be a little sluggish. Boy, was I wrong about that one.
We were all wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yep, not bad. But hey, congrats to Minnesota on the win tonight. I got to ask you, did you get a chance to see the end of the Minnesota game?
Yes.
All right. What was the unsportsmanlike conduct? Someone said Brandon simulated a weapon. Was that a new rule instituted this year by the NCAA?
No, it's not been instituted this year. It's been on the books for some period of time. Mm-hmm. But then they showed the replay. Did you see the replay?
No, I didn't.
Okay, the replay showed the player lifting his jersey and kind of simulating either putting a weapon in or out of a holster or whatever it might be. And that's what it was. Okay.
I was wondering because I wasn't sure. But because the reaction from PJ Fleck was like, why are you calling that pill? But I don't know. I guess once he sees the film, maybe you see something different. But okay, I got to ask you this. I'm going to give you 3 teams and you see who's the worst one. Purdue, Florida State, Mississippi State.
Purdue.
That's what I'm thinking. And I don't know how bad Florida State ended up losing tonight.
29-13.
Not bad. I guess Clemson just took it easy on himself. No, I was just wondering stuff like that. But I got to ask you this, though. When is people going to start talking about Curtis Work, man?
They're going to start to talk about him nationally when they play somebody that people care about. But we can talk about him tonight or anytime. Of course, he's doing a heck of a job, and Indiana's undefeated. So somebody should be talking about them. But again, it's Maryland and it's Indiana and it's Northwestern.
Oh, that Northwestern game, even though they won 41-24, that was a darn good game today with Illinois. I mean, with IU and Northwestern.
Yeah, I didn't see the game. I was just keeping track of the score. And yeah, Northwestern was putting up points and was staying close.
Yep, I was just wondering stuff like that. But so, what's your take about Missouri and Texas A&M?
Well, I can't say that I thought Texas A&M was going to blow them out, but I certainly was confident that they were going to win the game. Now, there were a couple plays early in that game that were a bit questionable in regards to officiating that would have kept Missouri around a little bit. Like there was a pretty cheap call on a Luther Burden 75-yard touchdown catch that would have made it like 14-7, I believe, and a couple other calls that went against Mizzou. But that aside, they got blown out. They got annihilated. And I was the one person that I know of that wasn't really on this Missouri train like most people were. They obviously were ranked in the top 10 in the country by the national polls, and in just about every service I've seen in every publication, they were a top 10 team, and they have, by SEC standards, a pretty light schedule. So I know a lot of people pick them to go 10-2. I picked them to go 4-4 in the SEC. So I didn't think that they were that good of a team. I know that when a team goes 11-2 like they did last year, and they bring back their best player as they do at wide receiver and brought back their quarterback, that people just look at that. But they lost a ton on defense, and their defense is lousy, awful.
And it seemed like Texas A&M just would do whatever they want and stuff like that. Last thing before one or two last things I got to said before I let you go. Who loss would actually affect them more, do you think? Alabama or Tennessee? With both of them losing today, who do you think it might affect more?
Alabama. Vanderbilt is still Vanderbilt to a certain extent. They are so much improved, and I give Clark Lee a ton of credit, and obviously by their results this year. But this team lost to Georgia State a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
And if you watched Arkansas play, as I have a number of times this year, they could have beaten Texas A&M. They should have beaten Oklahoma State. They could be an undefeated team. They only lost to Alabama last year by 4 points. They lost a slew of one-score games last year. They've been a decent team. So that game did not surprise the Alabama Vanderbilt. I would have never. You could have had me pick upset after upset after upset, and I would have never gotten to that game. But Arkansas, Tennessee, yeah, no surprise there.
All right, I can ask you. Oh, and if Erica comes in tonight, tread lightly because she's not a happy camper right now. But I got to ask you this, though. What was Kirk Ferentz thinking early
What
in
was
the
he
game?
thinking when?
Did you see the Ohio State game?
Yes.
Or was you when they went for it on the fake? He called a timeout right after they got and stuff like that. What was he? Was he thinking it was bad formation or something? Or
yes,
because she was not a happy camper, sir. No, I think she could have been there. She probably would have killed Kirk Ferentz today.
Well, I got to say that I'm with Erica on that one because, first of all, hey, great call. You went for the fake punt. You got it. Unfortunately, we see this from time to time where the coach kind of outsmarts himself, but his team was able, even regardless of what the look was on defense on the other side of the ball, they were able to execute and get the first down. But he called the timeout just in time. And then he's looking at, so obviously he did not trust his offense to get the first down. He trusted his special teams to pull off a play. But once they showed that killed the fake. And I would have put my offense out there. That was at roughly the 40-yard line. And
close to midfield.
Yeah, you're not beating Ohio State by punting and not going for fourth. And, there are teams out there that now, if they're within that 40-yard range, they're going for it on 4th and 5. If you're at 4th and a half a yard, less than a half a yard, they even got, and see the part of that, in addition to that, I was thinking that he called the timeout so that they could give the previous play a look and spot the ball differently, which they did. So they gave him a closer spot to the first down, and he still didn't go for it. And then his punter punts the ball 22 yards, which of course he can't control or forecast because he's got a good punter, but that's just, you got to go for it there.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Would it have made a difference in the game today?
No. They got steamrolled.
Yeah, pretty much the same way I think it was the same score as it was last week with Michigan State, wasn't it?
Basically, it was 38-7 last week. And you could even say that Iowa got a gift of a touchdown. It was in garbage time. It was meaningless. There was 2 minutes left in the game.
Oh, just like UCLA did against Penn State?
Yes, exactly. It was 35-0, which would have been the 4th consecutive shutout for Iowa's offense and Iowa's team against a ranked opponent.
Not bad. Looked like the Nebraska-Rutgers game was a good game today. Did Rutgers even have a chance? Or was that like a garbage time touchdown for Rutgers?
I don't quite know because it was 14-0 for most of the game. And then I saw that Rutgers scored and then I saw like 90 seconds left. So that might not have mattered too much. I don't know if they had to go for an onside kick. I didn't see any of that game.
Yeah, okay. Oh, excuse me. Oh, one last thing, because I actually missed it last night. What was the answer to your trivia question in your YouTube short?
All right. Thank you for that, Michael. So, everyone, I posted a short a few months ago, whenever it was, and I would like to do more of this stuff in the future. But anyway, what my question was, everybody in the chat, was what school that has the worst winning percentage in college football all time has produced a 4-time Super Bowl winning player, 3 college football Hall of Fame coaches, a Super Bowl MVP, and one of the top 3 pass catching tight ends in receptions and yards in Super Bowl or in NFL history. And that team, that program would be, does anybody have a guess here? Mike says Kansas. No, Kansas, I do not believe, has a Super Bowl MVP for one thing. All right. Any other guesses? Anybody going once, going twice, going 3 times? I think somebody's got it there. I see KSU. I don't know if they mean Kansas State or if they mean Kent State. That's your answer. Thank you, 1989M.
Okay.
Super Bowl MVP, Julian Edelman. 4-time Super Bowl winner, Jack Lambert. 3 Hall of Fame coaches, Lou Holtz, Nick Saban, Don James, and Antonio Gates, one of the most prolific tight ends in the history of the NFL.
Because you said the coaches won 9 national championships between the 3. Oh, yes. Well, yeah, I guess you got to count Nick Saban because Lou Holtz and Don James only won 1 national championship. So I guess that's where the other 7. All right, fair enough. I was sure because I thought some people was typing in Kent State. I was like, wait a minute, Kent State. That would you have? I don't know.
You're right. That's what I did say. I thought I said 3 Hall of Fame head coaches. I'm sure they're in the Hall of Fame as well, but I said yes, that they've won 9 national championships.
Well, you said they was Hall of Fame coaches, but I'm not sure if they've been in the Hall of Fame yet.
Well,
just a matter of time.
Yeah, I believe so. I think he may get some consideration.
Yeah, just a wee bit. All right, well, Mark, even though this is a downer day, just like Purdue football has been all this, tomorrow's always a new day, so you never know what could happen. I mean, last Sunday, who would have thought Purdue would fire Graham Harrell? But I'm not saying that'll happen tomorrow, but you never know, though. But, hey, you guys try to stay positive. Take one day at a time, though, man.
That's it, Michael. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it.
See you. Yep, see you. 11 o'clock tomorrow morning or 10 o'clock in the morning?
11 a.m.
Sounds good. See you, sir.
All right, let's keep this thing rolling here at the Voice of College Football. Do we have any updates? Let's go. What do we got? What is that? Oh, that's the Big Ten scoreboard. The current scoreboard. Okay, we've gone to halftime. Cal leads Miami 21-10. Texas Tech on top of Arizona 7-3 with 2 minutes left in the second quarter. And those are the only games left. All right. Welcome into the Voice for College Football. We got Porter on the line.
Hey, good evening. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Porter.
Is it? No, it's good morning. Good morning. I'm sorry. Good morning. Well, Michael, I'm sorry. My friend, I mean, I like Michael a lot. He's always one of the more friendly guys in the chat. But I'm even though I sound like from the South, which I am, a Georgia graduate, but my parents are both from Central Indiana. And my mother went to IU, so she's a 1965 graduate of IU. So I'm so glad IU is undefeated. So sorry, Michael. I think if your coach is going to get fired, it would be this year because IU is having such a great year.
Yeah, this Purdue football team is beyond awful.
What is IU? Are they 5-0?
They went to 6-0 today.
All right. Good job. I was raised on SEC football and IU basketball, so how about that? I love Bob Knight and Isaiah Thomas and Keith Smart.
Sure.
That's kind of the way I was raised. So that's how I was raised, Michael. Sorry, my man. Yeah, great. It's wide open the SEC. Mark, what do you think?
I think it's crazy. I love it. Ole Miss has already lost. Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M's undefeated, and now you look at these games with just kind of a fresh look on who could possibly beat somebody else. And I think outside of Mississippi State, they are the Purdue version of the SEC, and maybe Florida, that it's not a big stretch to conjecture that anyone has a shot, at least in any SEC game.
Yeah, it's really amazing. There are some teams that I feel like have been protected with the schedule, and one of those is Texas. To be honest with you, I think Texas, they're going to get theirs later in the year. I don't know if it's we may lose in Austin in a few weeks. That's fine, whatever. But I see Texas going down in Fayetteville. I see them going down in College Station. For some reason, the SEC really wanted to protect them the first year they were in the conference. I have no idea why, but they have got a super soft schedule.
Yeah,
and we will see if they survive, and because if they drop the two games that I'm pretty confident they will drop, including A&M. By the way, A&M, let me just say, their coach is doing one of the best coaching jobs this year, in my opinion. I know they dropped the game against Notre Dame, but I wouldn't be surprised if A&M goes like 9-3 or something like that. I mean, he is doing a fantastic job. So I give A&M a lot of credit, and that the new quarterback. Well, I'm sorry, I want to say they put the old quarterback in today, I think, but I caught like the last bit of that game. But I see Texas losing when they go to College Station, and like I said, when they go to Fayetteville, I'm so proud of the Hogs. I mean, our former offensive line coach. Remind me, the head coach of the Arkansas,
Sam Pittman.
Yeah, Pittman. So proud of him and the job he's doing. He had a heartbreak against Oklahoma State, but I mean he gets the most out of his team. So proud of the victory they had today against Tennessee, and so that's Fayetteville's it's not an easy place to play. It's hard to get there. They got passionate fans, so that Arkansas is not an easy out. So I'm very proud of what Sam Pittman's been able to build over there. I don't know, man. It's gonna be it's gonna be crazy. I mean, I know I called in a couple weeks ago talking about the TV ratings for the SEC. What's kind of your feelings on the TV ratings? I feel like ESPN continues to really knock it out of the park when it comes to the SEC.
Well, of course, yes. The SEC and the Big Ten are going to have the best TV ratings. But I do recall, Porter, that on the eve of the weekend in which USC and Michigan played, and I believe the SEC's big game was Oklahoma, Tennessee, I did tell you that USC Michigan would have a better rating than Oklahoma, Tennessee, and we disagreed on that one.
Yeah, you're right, but it was like I want to say it was like 8.2 versus 8.6 or something. I mean, it was very close. You have to admit that. I mean, it was right there. When you say,
I don't recall what they were, but if you're reciting that correctly, then yeah, fine. Then it's inconsequential. I agree.
it was about 400 to 15. I'm sorry, to 400 to 500,000.
Okay,
But
not a huge deal.
I mean, hey, Mark, I'll listen. I will tell you when you're right. You were right about that. You were absolutely correct. So I was wrong, but it was close.
Sure, it's not a big deal.
What are your views on Southern Cal? I mean, I got on this forum back before we started going into different, the Southern Cal channel and the Bruin channel, whatever it was. But I remember getting on here a couple of years ago when all the Southern Cal guys were on. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're Southern Cal. We're used to traveling. We can." I said, "Okay, guys, you're going to be in Rutgers one week, and you're going to be in East Lansing the next. You're going to be in Bloomington in a few weeks after that. This travel is going to take its toll." And what do you know? I mean, the first year they're in the Big Ten, they lose to Minnesota. I told them 2 years ago that this travel was going to wear their team out. And what do you know?
Well, I said something similar a number of times during this off season because, of course, we've got our USC show. So there's a lot of time to kill in the off season to look at schedules. And the more I looked at this schedule, the more I thought, yeah, once USC clears Michigan, which at that point, thinking Michigan was going to be better than they are, but of course they lost that game. And once I saw USC against LSU, and I'm not claiming LSU to be a great team, but they're full of talent and they're a top 15 to 20 team in the country. And I had a pretty good gauge on how good I think USC is. That while if you go game by game by game by game through this stretch from the Michigan game to their final game against Notre Dame, really the Penn State game jumps out at you, but it's a lot of Rutgers, Minnesota, Maryland, Nebraska. And I know that USC fans from doing the show and seeing their comments just kind of discarded the rest of this schedule and just looked at the Penn State game as being the one challenge. And while you could look at all those games singularly and say, yeah, USC's better than them and them and them and them, I didn't look at it so much from the travel aspect, although I think that's valid. I just think that the wear and tear in that league versus what they're used to in the Pac-12 and the physical pounding and the ability of these defenses, and you are facing, or they are, more NFL players per team than they were in the past, that I expected, even though I believe USC is a better team than Minnesota and still do right this second, that they would struggle through playing these games consecutively against mid-level Big Ten teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And when you look at the NFL draft, you see how well the Big Ten does. And, going to East Lansing is not easy. Going to Penn State is not easy. So you can't take those for granted. And anyway, it's I mean, I'm not a big, I told you so kind of person, but but I do, when it comes down to the realignment of the conferences and what's going on, I do blame Southern Cal and UCLA more than I blame Oklahoma and Texas, just because Oklahoma and Texas were in contiguous states to the SEC, whereas Southern Cal and UCLA, I mean, that was out of nowhere. That was one of these, hey, we're 1,400 miles away. We want to try and join the Big Ten. I mean, they have only themselves to blame for all of the mess that they have caused college football, and they're the chickens are going to come home to roost, and
Well,
they're going to
Porter,
be an 8-4 program, both of them. UCLA, if they're lucky, Southern Cal, I'm sure, will hate that, but they're going to be an 8-4 program.
yeah, I picked USC to go 8-4 this year, and I caught some hell on the USC channel for that. But that's what I declared for this year. We shall see how that plays out. I will take a different angle. Not that I'm saying again that I think what you're stating there is valid from your perspective, but you could also look at it this way. Other than the geography, you could make an argument that there is more in common and there was a more substantial relationship between USC and UCLA in the Big Ten than there was with Oklahoma and Texas and the SEC. There was a Rose Bowl, there was a Big Ten Pac-12 alliance, and that conference was obviously in trouble. The Big 12 was never in trouble.
So you think the Pac-12 or 10 or whatever it was called before, it was in trouble just because of revenue, right? But I mean, they weren't in trouble of folding. Is that what
No,
you're
not if they all stay together. No.
exactly? So it just seems.
It's been a poorly run
Stretch.
conference.
What's that?
It's been a poorly run conference.
It has been, but rather than get another commissioner or try to maybe get some stronger members that are in adjacent states, like BYU or someone like that, and try to make it better, they decided to just, the Pac-10 was gutted pretty much when UCLA and Southern Cal decided to leave to go to a pretty much a Midwestern centric conference. So I guess that's water in the bridge. I'm not trying to litigate that. I'm just saying that they're getting their own right now when they go to some nondescript away game in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and lose. It's they only have themselves to blame for that this kind of stuff. So that's why I don't. Even though I like both programs, even though I don't have any, I don't have any kind of like soft spot in my heart for what they're going through right now, because they're going to go through some tough times, in my opinion, just because of the travel and trying to win these games against more physical defenses, like you said. What do you think about the Oregon Ohio State game next week?
I think that it should be a great game. And of course, Oregon's got the advantage of being at home. And at one point in the offseason, I would have told you that they have the better quarterback, but I'm not so sure about that now. But I think Ohio State's a decidedly better team.
Yeah, I think so too. I assume Oregon was off this week. Is that right?
They beat Michigan State.
Oh, they did. Okay. What was the score?
31-10.
Okay. Where was the game? Was it East Lansing or
Autzen?
Okay.
Autzen Stadium.
Right.
Yeah,
All right.
Oregon.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Ohio State's going to win, but just because I don't think Oregon, even though I like Dan Lanning, obviously he was our defensive coordinator when we won the national championship in 2021. I like Dan Lanning, but I see Ohio State winning by, say, I don't know, 11 points, probably 10, 11 points. Should be fun. Should be. I like when game day is there, because they kind of they kick off the show, in the dark, which is kind of cool. And the duck, on the motorcycles. So should be a fun show.
Yep.
I think I've already announced they're going to be there, so it should be a fun show. But anyway, well, hey, it's been a great day. Like I said, I'm pleased with how the SEC is kind of. I'm pleased with our crazy day, and I'm out here having a bourbon and water and
There you go.
enjoying myself, and so it should be another great week next week. And hope you have a great week coming up, and I'll call in next week.
Thanks, Porter. Thanks for stopping by. You too. Always appreciate our faithful viewers calling in, and Porter's certainly one of them. Fongwei is saying, call in next week after USC thumps Penn State. It could happen. I highly doubt it. All right. We got Caden on the line. Caden, what's going on tonight?
Nothing much. Yourself, Mark?
I'm doing just fine. Just talking some college football.
And Cal scored another extra point and touchdown against Miami.
Look at that. Yes, they did.
And Texas Tech ends the half at 18-3 against Arizona. Well, Ohio State won another game by a blowout.
Yep.
As per usual. And we'll be having another blowout or shutout game next week against Oregon and Eugene.
Okay. Yeah, I know that you've stated that several times here, so we will just have to wait and see if that transpires.
Yeah, and I heard a bunch of Oregon fans over the phone recently, and I'm like, yeah, they are not ready. And the performance I saw in Michigan State, yeah, that proves my point. Oregon is not ready for Ohio State.
Well, if you want to make Michigan State an example, Oregon had no problems beating Michigan State.
Yeah, well, it's from then this is just from me being, and like just understanding, like, if Dylan Gabriel's causing these interceptions, and he's throwing them,
yes,
that's going to be a big problem.
Yeah, well, one of the interceptions for sure was a horrible decision and a horrible pass. The other one, I think the Michigan State defensive back, they both interceptions, the MSU defensive back made a great play on the ball, but one of them was just a terrible decision. I don't know what he was thinking, what he saw, because it was just, there was no confusion about traffic or trying to figure out coverages. It was just a man-on-man situation where the defensive back had the angle, and there's no way he was going to throw it through him, and he did. And then the other one, he was running around and tossed the ball in the end zone, and the Michigan State defensive back, Malik Spencer, made a just ridiculous catch. But, Dylan Gabriel did not play a great game against Michigan State.
Everybody in the offseason was saying Oregon was going to be a good team this year, but as far as I've been concerned, they have not been a good team.
Well, they've been a good team in spots, and they've been shaky in other spots. Their first two games, obviously, were shaky. And since then, they've been pretty solid. They've dusted off everybody else the last 4 weeks.
Shaky. They've been shaky for the last 5 weeks.
They were shaky against Michigan State.
Like, throwing those 2 interceptions and the penalties, that's just kind of my opinion.
Sure, they threw a couple interceptions. Yeah, Dylan Gabriel might have been shaky, but they trounced Michigan State. The yardage advantage was ridiculous. They drove up and down the field with no problem and shut down Michigan State to nothing.
But it's just, normally they would win their games by like 49, 50 plus. So that's just my opinion, but that could be wrong, could be right. I don't know. Oregon fans will probably come on here and be like, Hayden the man's doing this again, blah, 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 blah. And then the second thing was USC. Yeah, losing against Minnesota, that proves my other point. Minnesota, I just pray that next year that they don't slip this up again because they play Ohio State next year. So, yeah. And I'm going to feel sorry for Tim and Matt if they have to play Ohio State, because when they do, I'll be telling them they should have not ruled USC against Ohio State. So,
Well, they're going to have to play him sometime. I don't know if they play him next year.
yeah, they do.
Okay.
And in Columbus. So, humorous hero says Oregon was dominant against Sparty. I get that point, but I just wish Dylan Gabriel could at least not throw interceptions as much as he normally did. Then that would help Oregon. But if he's going to keep doing this, then he clearly shows me he needs to work on things, because if he doesn't before Ohio State, that's going to be like I said, a 49-plus point shutout to blow out.
I know. Well, Caden, I would say that, first of all, I wouldn't blow this out of proportion in regards to Dylan Gabriel's interception rate. He's got one of the lowest interception rates in the history of the sport. He just happened to throw 2 interceptions last night. I wouldn't just expect that. That's not a normal Dylan Gabriel performance. And again, you may back off the 49-0 or whatever your score is. I keep hearing 49 and a shutout, so I'm guessing it's going to be 49-0.
Well, like 49-6 or 49-3.
Okay.
Or like 58-6.
Okay.
I'm going to keep it at that, and then I'm going to keep it against Penn State and Michigan, like I said. Because Alex Orgy did not look well against Washington. I will say that.
Well, sure, he got benched.
And then Penn State, UCLA, that proves my other point. That Penn State still's got a few errors to work on. Because after week 1 against West Virginia, yeah, that kind of just showed and proved my point that they still got things to work on.
The only thing I can about guarantee is that Ohio State will have adversity this season. So they're not going to prance through all these teams 49-0.
Say it as you want, Mark, but when they do beat somebody by 49 plus, I'm going to be the one calling in to your show and probably Tim and Matt's show. And I'm going to be saying, I told you so.
Well, you're going to have to tell me that you told me so after they do it 3 times. You're telling me that they're going to beat Penn State, Oregon, and Michigan by 49 points each. That's what you've been telling me.
And I said it clearly, didn't I?
Yes. And so after the Michigan game, after Ohio State wins 49-0 or whatever the score is going to be, that's going to be something similar to that. And having done that against Oregon and Penn State, then you will be able to tell me that you told me so.
You forgot Michigan, too.
I said after the Michigan game.
Well, I'll tell you after the Oregon, Penn State, and Michigan game. So 3 games.
You'll have to wait till after the Michigan game, because if they beat Oregon this week, and I can't believe that I'm wasting this much time on this point, because this show is clearly not about your predictions. And if it is, then we might as well shut down right now. So anyway, you've made ridiculous predictions, Caden. If they come true, you can come on here and do a victory lap. That would be phenomenal. I would have no problem with that. All right. Anything else tonight, Caden?
No, but just to the Oregon fans, we'll see you all soon. And Mark, you can do me a favor.
Possibly.
Just write down tonight that you had Caden the man said that when I come back and I tell you I told you so, that we beat Oregon, Penn State, Michigan 49 plus points. I will at least be the only one on this channel that says, I told you so, Mark Rogers. I told you so. Because guess what? You'll be the one sitting with your head down because I told you so. Moron. Mark the moron. 5-star dummy.
All right. You were just in the presence of greatness, everyone, as I was. Caden, the man who hides behind a circle that says K, has predicted Ohio State to beat Oregon, Penn State, and Michigan all 49-0. So, hey, Caden, if that turns out to be the case, I will be the happiest guy on the planet. That will be fine with me. If Ohio State wins those 3 games 49-0, phenomenal. Great. That would be, I root for the team. So that would be great. Ohio State is not beating Penn State, Oregon, and Michigan by 49 points. All right. They beat Iowa by 28 points today. Let's just put that in perspective. All right. We got the Michigan man stopping by. Michigan man, what's going on tonight?
Hey, man, I usually don't talk about other callers, but that was tough to listen to, my guy.
Yeah, especially since the guy's called like 8 days in a row and he said the exact same thing every time.
That was tough, Mark. I felt like I was losing a couple brain cells listening to that one.
Yeah, well,
No offense to that.
well, you got to realize that I've listened to thousands of callers in which I thought I was losing brain cells. So he's just in a different category.
I mean, he called you a moron. Like, whatever. Let's get that.
Yeah, I'm not affected when, it's probably like you in your life, Michigan man, where there's only about the opinions of like 5 people on this planet that I care about. So when a moron calls you a moron, I guess I can interpret that as a compliment.
Yeah, no, that was funny. But anyways, before I get to the train wreck that is my football team, I'm sure you've noticed my profile picture. I'm campaigning for opening coaching positions at this point. But
well, very nice. Yeah,
this might be the greatest upset day I've ever seen. What we have? 5 top 10 teams are going down. 5? That's crazy.
Okay, so Missouri, that was not an upset, but they were a top 10 team. Okay. Of course, Michigan lost. I actually was kind of surprised because I don't follow the AP rankings. When I saw a 10 next to Michigan's name playing Washington, I was thinking they're still in the top 10 in the country. But anyway,
yeah.
And that was not an upset either. Washington was a very slim
they were favorite.
So you're
but yeah, you had Alabama, Tennessee, Mizzou, Michigan, USC, Miami's going to lose. This is crazy, man.
Yeah, what is the Miami score here? Is that
28-10?
Okay, so that's still in doubt, but it's not looking good. So really, it was just Alabama and Tennessee.
Yeah, I guess in terms of upsets, yeah, that's true. But I mean, we just look at the rankings, though. I don't remember because a lot of these teams they lost to unranked teams. It's not like they lost in a premier matchup.
Again, we are overrating the rankings. These rankings from AP are senseless and really don't mean anything.
That's fair, but I mean Tennessee losing to Arkansas. I mean, who saw that coming? Especially Alabama losing to Vandy. They were like, what?
That one, yes, absolutely. That one, you could have said, start picking upsets on Saturday and we'll tell you when to stop. And I could have gotten 20 deep and I wouldn't have hit Vandy and Alabama. Now, Tennessee and Arkansas, I was not surprised by that. And I picked Texas A&M to win. And yeah, again, Washington was a favorite. Now, I did pick Michigan to win, so I missed that.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that. Before I get to that, I think you should just book Ohio State, Texas. It's still early in the season. I get it in terms of, but I think I would book that for the championship game right now. In my opinion, this is the biggest down year in college football I've ever seen. We could go through the list of teams that usually are elite / juggernauts, and they're just not there. Alabama, Georgia, FSU is not really a juggernaut, but usually they're competitive. I mean, we could go all down the whole list of blue bloods and staples in the game that just aren't that this year. Really, it's just OSU and Texas that I would look at in terms of how they performed and be like, wow, they're playing really well. Outside of that, there's not a team that's really scary at all.
Well, I think Ohio State's pretty scary right now, and we'll see.
I said them, yeah,
sure,
them in Texas.
And I get your total point that if you look at undefeated teams right now, it's Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Penn State, and then anybody else who's undefeated, because there's like three other teams, Pitt and Indiana. Well, I think we all know that they're really not that good. So, yeah, there are far less undefeated teams left for it only being the first week of October than usual. Georgia's lost, Alabama's lost, all these teams have lost, Michigan, USC, on and on.
And it's who they're losing to. They're not. A lot of these teams aren't losing to a premier team. They're losing to teams that should have no business beating them. A lot of these teams.
Yeah, especially
it's a really weird year.
Yeah, it is. The SEC, we were all looking at Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss. Okay, we can't wait until they play each other. Well, they don't have to play each other. Georgia almost lost to Kentucky, and Ole Miss lost to Kentucky, and Bama loses to Vandy. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, Minnesota, man. Yeah, welcome to the Big Ten, USC. They ain't no cakewalk, man. You Minnesota even. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
But let's get to my train wreck of a team, man. I want the whole coaching staff fired. I'm dead serious, man. Yeah. What I saw today is all coaching to me. All coaching. You can start with the defense. It's 3rd and 8 in the 4th quarter. I don't understand these zero blitzes, man.
Yeah.
I don't understand. This isn't the NFL. Not everyone in the secondary is a top prospect that you can just ask to cover 10 times a game in a zero blitz. You're going to get exposed. You don't do that in college. I don't know any team that does it that does zero blitzes like that in college with no help. I don't. Do you?
No.
It's they'll do it even with 5 wide. It'll be 5 wide. He's let's send 7 of them and just leave whoever out there on an island. It makes no sense. I want to.
Not to interrupt, but he would have had more success doing that with last year's defensive backfield with Sanders still around and Josh Ross and.
Yeah, it makes no sense. I wouldn't even do it with that. Look, in college, you might be able to get away with that in very situational moments, but he does it, I swear, 10 times a game in situations that make no sense. And you don't have, and like you said, you have guys in the secondary that don't have the experience to go one-on-one. They just don't. You had Jair Hill falling down, getting confused on routes. You had Zeke. Zeke didn't know where the receiver was. He had his back turned. That was a touchdown. It's a travesty. And then you go to the offense. You can't plug a quarterback into this mess. I don't care what quarterback you would have got. There's no fixing this. Even when Tuttle goes in there, right? Yeah, we had a couple scoring drives, but once the defense on Washington was like, oh, okay, now they got a more of a prototypical quarterback back there, what do? We go out in the 3rd quarter, we score in the opening drive, and then we just 3 and out it the rest of the way, pretty much. We just 3 and out it the rest of the way. And then Edwards gets somehow the same amount of carries as Mullings. I thought we figured this out by now. Did we
Well,
not figure this out by now?
Edwards was playing pretty well.
But this is what he does, Mark. He scores on a touchdown, and then the rest of the game, he stalls your drives. If they haven't figured out that Mullings, even if Edwards breaks off a run, that's his role. He'll break a couple, but just because he broke one, don't just go away from Mullings. Oh, he's RB1 now, I guess. I guess he's RB1 now. No, clearly Mullings was RB1. You said he was RB1. He's proven he's RB1. He's proven he's every down back. This is a sign of a young head coach that really doesn't know what he wants to do. That's really trepidatious. And if anything goes wrong, he just pulls the trigger or goes with the wind. So I don't know if do you agree with all that?
Well, I agree with our assessment of Mullings versus Edwards. You know, we've talked about that in recent weeks. Edwards is not an RB1. He's very indecisive, doesn't pick the right hold, doesn't have great instincts. He's an athlete. And we talked about the way he was used when they had Haskins and Corum, and that was really effective. Where Mullings is just a beast. So absolutely, I agree with you on that one. Did you agree with pulling Orgy and going with Tuttle when they did?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. But to me, at this point, I think it was proven this game, it's not really a quarterback issue necessarily. It's your O-line can't pass block to save anybody. The right tackle, by the way, I think is the worst right tackle in the country. Jack Sawyer is going to abuse that man if he's still there. And I don't even think Jack Sawyer is like top of the line pass rusher, but he's going to abuse that man if he's still the right tackle. That's not going to be a good day. It's you don't got wide receivers that can run any good routes. Your only good route runner is Colston Loveland, and a quarterback's not going to fix that. It's just not the case. And when they put Tuttle in there, they just abandoned all the motions that they were doing with Edwards. They just abandoned it. They just went back to what they were doing with Davis Warren, which is just hike the ball, run it up the middle. Hike the ball, run it up the middle. Like, it's hard to watch, man. And I think they got to move on from Sherrone Moore. They're not going to do it. They have to. This is such a waste of talent. I'm not sure if you agree with that. I think it's a waste of talent what they're doing this year. But yeah.
No, I still think this is a really good football team. Not the way they're being coached, but I think that this is a fringe top 10 team in the country. Now, the quarterback situation aside, if they had a capable quarterback, I would feel more confident making that statement, because regardless of the coaching staff, even if you brought in the best coaching staff in America, I think that they would have issues at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, but here's the thing, man. If Jim Harbaugh, now this is obviously hypothetical. I know for a fact if Jim Harbaugh was the head coach, right? One, he'd have these players playing better fundamentally. One, two, he wanted to fumble. The quarterback situation is bad. I heard a quote at halftime from Sherrone Moore that Tuttle has been practicing for weeks. He's been practicing for weeks. Do they know what they're looking at? I mean, do they know?
I'm with you. I said to a previous caller that if Tuttle was healthy sooner, I don't know what they're thinking, because at least he's got a track record. And again, he came into the lineup tonight and he played reasonably well. I thought he threw the ball pretty well. He is what he is, and he didn't really surprise me. He had one fumble, of course, but that wasn't the ball security wasn't a huge issue there. It was a really good play by the Washington D tackle. Yeah, they should have been playing Tuttle this whole time, if or at whatever point he was healthy.
Yeah, look, man, I'm ready. I just think they need to move on. Nick Saban, if you hearing me right now, I know you on TV, man. I will take you. Hey, you know what? Urban Meyer. I know you want to do it, but it made me price at this point, man. Like, this is such a fall from grace at this point. Hey, real quick comment before I go about Nick Saban real quick. That was a classic case of rat poison with Alabama today.
Yeah,
that would never happen if Nick Saban was the head coach.
No.
That's a classic case of you beat Georgia and I guarantee you they was smelling their own farts, and they went in there probably just thinking they were gonna win the game, and we saw what happened. So that goes to show you how important coaching is, both with Michigan and both with Alabama. That coaching is, despite all the talent in the world, nothing beats great coaching.
Yeah, these coaches matter. There's no doubt about that. You would make Mike Fort ill, though, physically ill, if you brought in Urban Meyer, it says.
You know what makes me physically ill, Mike Fort? What I saw today. All right. Hey, what's that phrase, Mark? Winning cures everything.
Yes. You know what I thought of Urban Meyer before he got hired at Ohio State? I couldn't stand the guy. And what do you think I thought of him after 12-0 the first year?
Oh, you probably love the guy.
Well, what do you think I thought of him at the news the second that he was announced as the Ohio State head coach? I remember telling every friend I had, calling my son and saying, "We just won a national championship." He was my guy.
Yeah, winning cures everything, man. I don't care. I would take Urban Meyer over what I saw today any day of the week. All right, I'll just leave it at that. You have a good day, Mark. Texas OSU should be in the championship game. This is my code name for this year is the year of mid of college football. All right, peace out, man.
Appreciate you, Michigan man. Have a good one. All right, let's keep it rolling here. The voice of college football. We got our buddy Minnesota Dave stepping in here, and Minnesota Dave, this should be like a banner night for you, buddy.
Oh, I'm glad that this will be a part of it. All the great upsets.
Were you at the game?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, it was a great feeling, watching the students rush the field after the win. It just feels so good. I'm surprised that USC did not adjust to Minnesota. All Minnesota really did was dink and dunk pass to running backs the whole entire time, and they just let them do it.
So I didn't see too much. I got into it with about 7 or 8 minutes left, something like that. I thought that USC should have stayed with a run. Jaquavius Marks was having some good running room, and they could not pass protect. Your pass rush was all over Miller Moss constantly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did well. I thought they would at least run the ball too, because there was a couple of times they would run on like 3rd and long and still get it. But it was really, really good. PJ actually had a well-coached game. I was surprised that he went for on 4th and inches in that goal line, and technically they said he didn't get in, but he clearly got in. Max.
I was afraid for you there, Dave, because I thought he got into, and I thought it was pretty clear. But you know what happens once they rule it one way on the field? And there was also some uncertainty. I don't know if you've seen the replay. Have you watched the replays or anything?
Yeah, I watched a couple of the replays. I thought he got in. The running back got in too early.
Well, yeah, he got in, but then there was a thought that maybe he lost the ball at some point.
No, I didn't hear about that.
Okay. That's what they were talking about on the broadcast. I couldn't see it, but I guess he lost the football. But the initial surge, he was in, and then I think he got pushed back and lost the ball after he was already in.
Yeah. I mean, it was a very, very interesting ending. I'm like, I thought to myself, okay, just kick the field goal and see what happens. We weren't supposed to even be in this game, but PJ's like, we're going to go for this touchdown. We're going to get it. And once we get it, all they have to do is just basically tie, all they can do is basically, tie to win the game with under a minute. And our defense was stout. And I want to say this, refs, hold the freaking, hold the penalties on these celebration penalties, on these excessive celebration type things, unsportsmanlike conduct. When Wally made a great play on the defensive player and broke up the pass, all he did was just rub his stomach like, give me more. and they called that I called the penalty on that, and that was a 15-yard penalty. Then we get the interception, and then we get like a whole bunch of flags thrown, and it's for excessive celebration after the interception that basically cleared us the game. It's like, stop with it. Just stop. It doesn't mean anything.
Well, I don't have an issue with, for as much as I saw, I don't know how many late hits, unnecessary roughness calls today that I thought were ridiculous and ticky-tack. Tons of them. I don't have an issue with this. I don't like the throat slashing. And see, the thing is that it's in and of itself, it's harmless.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't believe that organized sport should be promoting gang mentality or violence of that sort. And we know where all that originates. So that's why it's been ruled out of athletics and college football in particular. So I am fully in support of that.
Yeah, but what rubbing your stomach is gang mentality?
Well, I don't think he was rubbing his. I think it was some kind of like a weapon gesture. I don't know, Dave. I'm just saying that I have no issue with that. Basically, jump up and down and go crazy and dance or do whatever you want. But let's rule out all gang-related, weapons-related type of imagery.
All right,
And the officials are only doing what they're told to do.
Related thing.
And the officials are only doing what the rule book. They have no jurisdiction over the rule book. They have to call the rules, and the powers that be are incessant about what they want to have enforced.
All right.
So I'm going to defend him to a certain extent. I don't know if he was rubbing his belly or what he was doing during the broadcast.
Pointing the other way. That's what Wally was doing. He rubbed
during
his
the
belly,
broadcast.
The
What did they call it in the stadium? They called it something about branding a weapon or something, brandishing a weapon, and then they explained during the broadcast just that any type of gesture about a weapon is going to be flagged.
Yeah. Well, I didn't see that. I just saw the rubbing of the stomach. I didn't hear about the brandishing of a weapon. And feed me, and then pointing the other way. Unless he thought he was doing kind of like a gun type thing. So, I don't know.
Well, I wouldn't focus on that, Dave. You just won a big ball game. Be happy.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm horribly happy. This is probably probably one of the best PJ coach games in a long, long time. And I hope we just keep on going with this. This is we have a lot of games. We have we have UCLA next week, and then we have a bye, and then we have Maryland. A lot of those games are winnable, and I think we have every game I feel on our schedule is very winnable for the Gophers, except for Penn State.
I would agree. And I don't know how much you could see PJ on the sideline from where you were sitting, but I was busting the gut. He was fired up.
Oh yeah. He was screaming. You can see him just scream. He was in. How do you not call that?
How far did he run? It looked like he sprinted about 40 yards.
I love the energy of PJ when everything goes well. I hate the energy of PJ when everything basically doesn't go well. That's the way I feel about that. I like all the play calls. I didn't know why USC did not adjust on the screen passes and the dink and dunks. They would let our wide receivers get a 5-yard, go out 5 yards, grab the ball, and then you get on one-on-one and break a tackle. And that's what happened. There was a lot of great plays. We were able to finally run the ball, which was great. We got key defensive stops when we needed it. We created a turnover and scored points off turnovers, which matters in a game like this. And I'm not saying that USC is an overrated team, but there's a lot of flaws. They were never the number 11th school in the country, in my opinion.
I agree.
I always thought that they were at least maybe 18th, maybe like top 20, barely the bottom half of the top 20. But my God, and Bama, how do you lose to freaking Vanderbilt?
Yeah.
Oh my God, good for Vanderbilt. I think they haven't beaten Bama since Reagan was president.
Yep. 84.
Gosh, he just got his second term.
That's right. Vandy had never beaten a top 5 team. They were 0-60.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, that is just amazing. And then, Vandy's like Northwestern, where you watch the games and it's basically all the visiting fans are there, and there might be a little section of Vandy fans or Northwestern fans. That's I good for them, good for their private school. Finally the smart kids won a game.
But if you think about what Vandy's done this year, they've now beaten Alabama and Virginia Tech, and they took Missouri to overtime.
But they also lost to Georgia State.
They lost to Georgia State. Yes, they did.
And so, well, I'll give Georgia State credit. I think they're an option football team. So
yeah,
and I think they've been like that for a while now.
Georgia State's feeling good about themselves today.
Oh yeah, they have to be. And then speaking about which, you go into that conference. James Madison is now not undefeated anymore.
Oh, they lost today, huh?
Yeah, they ended up losing to 21-19 to Louisiana Monroe today. That was good for them, good for Louisiana Monroe. The academies looked really good. Like I watched most of that Navy game, and I was really impressed. And in the Army game, I was also really impressed with the way they played. I think a lot of schools are going to be very scared to play those schools if they ever get into the playoffs.
Absolutely. All right, Minnesota Dave, congratulations. Anything else for us tonight?
Oh, nothing much. Just Sky Yuma, row the boat, and go Gophers.
I love when fans can celebrate rare wins. And for Minnesota, it's been a rough couple of years going back to last season, and it started not too well. I thought it was amusing that PJ Fleck just completely mobbed. Of course, it was a mob scene on the field after the game. Said that they had the best 3-loss team in the country. He's like, I told you we had the best 3-loss team in the country. All right. That's something to be proud of. All right, PJ. All right. Great stuff. Before I get to the next 2 calls, we better pick off these super chats. I thank you, everyone, so much for the super chats. Thank you for those. And I apologize for not getting to them sooner. Jackson chiming in. And of course, you can catch Jackson on the Alabama Live show. That's every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 Central on the Alabama channel with Jackson. So please check it out. What Alabama had was a failure to communicate. Daniel, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. Ohio State is the best team in college football. Hit the like. Daniel has been a member of the Voice of College Football community here for 17 months. Daniel, thank you so much for your support. And you can become a member here at the Voice of College Football by joining on the front page. We've got a number of tiers. The top tier is for the betting the predictions for the bets. So check that out if you so choose. All right. Then we've got Andrew coming in here. Michigan should have hit the portal and got at least somebody that can play. Dace was wrong when he said it was impossible for them to grab someone. And, of course, Steve Dace and I have addressed that topic a number of times throughout the off season. Here we go. Matthew says, Mark, you usually have 4 to 5 teams a year that stand above the rest. When is the last time you only have at most 2 this late in the year? 3 through 40 seems up in the air week to week. Well, that's a slight stretch, but Matthew, I agree with you. Again, I know you're just trying to make a point. I would still take Georgia over Minnesota, but I get your point. Yeah, usually 4 to 5 teams at this point stand above the rest. And that was my point at one point. We were talking tonight, and I said, who's undefeated? Like, there's usually still like a dozen teams that are undefeated. Right now, there's about 6 or 7, maybe. And really only Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, Texas are the teams that anybody believes in as undefeated teams. Yeah, it's a crazy year. And don't expect it to stop. Uncle Rico, thanks for stopping by as always. Has there ever been a single day with this many top 10 upsets with Miami looking like another? Okay, Miami's down 35-18. Don't give up on this one. I know that it's not a great place to be, down 17 entering the fourth quarter, but this one is still alive. But yeah, Miami most likely going to go down in this one. That would make Miami, Mizzou, Bama, Tennessee, Michigan. But let's keep in mind, as I mentioned, a Michigan man, Michigan was an underdog, and Missouri was an underdog, technically speaking. They were roughly 2-point dogs in their games. There have been very infrequent times in which this many top 10 teams have lost, to your point, Uncle Rico. But I would say that there have been similar days. And I'm sure that information is going to be somewhere on the internet. If not yet, it will be on Sunday and Monday. Vandy Dandy, congratulations. Vandy Dandy, congratulations to you. I feel good for you. I am so happy for you. You have suffered, unlike just about anybody else that watches our show. Congratulations. That must have just felt remarkable. I saw, in addition to the students flooding the field, which I've got total respect for. It's a tradition. It's great, whatever. But most of those students, they're freaking 19 years old. They've probably watched college football for the last 5 weeks. No, I'm looking in the stands, and they're showing when it became apparent, when it was obvious that Vandy had wrapped up the win, and they're showing sections of like 50-year-old dudes that look like they were basically in tears. Those are the people I feel good for, because I know that they're legitimate sports fans. Actually, some of these college students, I don't think they really care, really know what's going on, didn't care about their school or their team until they enrolled. So fine, great, you won, and I understand you went to school there and are going to school there, but I feel better for the actual hardened, hardcore fans. And finally, tonight we got Uncle Rico coming back with this one. Fun stat for USC fans. Through 32 games under Lincoln Riley, they are 22-10. Clay Helton was 23-9. Now, to put a little context to that, of course, and I know that's the little fun dig from Uncle Rico, is that Lincoln Riley took over a mess. They were 4-8 the previous season with the worst defense in the Pac-12. Clay Helton took over a pretty good football program. So just to put it into context, and I think that any reasonable USC fan would take Lincoln Riley any day over Clay Helton. All right, let's get to the phone lines. We got Tom on the line. Tom, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, I was just looking up here. Texas A&M's leading the SEC 3-0, right?
Yep.
That's who's on top, Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And
they
their
technically are.
schedule,
They are.
their schedule, they have LSU on the 26th and Texas on the finish of the season, and we may have a Texas A&M in the SEC championship headed to play for the national title. Who would have thought that?
Well, I got to say, I would not have. However, I did the same thing this afternoon after I watched that Missouri game, or at least I watched the first half. And I thought, wow, let's look at this schedule. And yeah, it's not a killer schedule the rest of the way. Not at all.
I mean, could Alabama get bumped out, in the tiebreaker? Do you see what I mean? Not even be in the championship game of the SEC?
Well, Tom,
this
this
is
is
a bunch
where,
of garbage.
well, Tom, this is where all these tiebreakers come into play, unlike any other time in college football, because now we get these expanded conferences and we no longer have divisions. Therefore, we've got all these tiebreakers among teams that won't play each other.
Right, and it's a bunch of garbage, Mark. These conferences should be in divisions, and you should get rivalries, and then they play one another. The champions go on. And your conference championships would be the first round of the playoffs. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's what should have happened. You could have
Yeah,
four
I've seen some
conferences.
models. I've seen some models of that, and I thought it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, you could have four conferences, and they play one another in the conference championship. It's just like, I'm an Iowa fan. We don't get to play Indiana. We don't get to play USC. I mean, there's so many teams we don't get to play. We don't get to play Michigan. Now, wouldn't that be a game that would be great? No offense, right?
Yeah, that
No
would be the
offense in that game.
that would be the no offense game, but I would also like to see the Iowa USC game.
Yeah,
I would love to see that because that would be the defense against the offense game.
yeah. I mean, and Mark, I'll tell you what, your new caller that's been on about 8 days in a row is starting to make me think Chris is kind of all right.
Well, things are relative sometimes. So, yeah.
I'd just soon hear about 1984 BYU, you know?
Yeah.
But
I
anyway.
just hearing Ohio State is the greatest team that's ever been assembled, and they're going to beat everyone by 50 points 8 days in a row. Okay,
by 50.
I get it. No.
So my take out of today's game, the Iowa-Ohio State game, right? And Mark, I should tell you that before I started listening to you 4 or 5 years ago, I mean, I could have cared less about Ohio State, but I don't really have a problem with Ohio State anymore because it is what it is. I mean, I don't get irritated by Ohio State anymore.
Okay.
Of course, Penn State, James Franklin, I just assume they lose every week, but that's James Franklin. That has nothing to do with Penn State. But anyway, but what I took out of the game today, Iowa has a really good defense. Better than I expected going into that game. You take the first half, they turned Ohio State over 2 times, stopped them on 4th down, and had the game at 7-0 at half. Iowa's problem is they don't have no horses on the offense. That's still the problem, and that's going to take time to fix. And then you come out in the second half, Iowa's defense still made Ohio State struggle to get a touchdown. They burnt the defensive back by a great receiver from Ohio State. And then you fumble the ball on the 19-yard line and give it back to Ohio State to make it a 21-0 game. So it's still, they don't have enough horses on the offense. That offense is all right to beat Minnesota, to beat Purdue, to beat Illinois, but it is not going to be the upper echelon of college football. It
And it's
just isn't.
and it's even improved, as you well know.
Yes. Caden McNamara, if you go back to 2 years ago when they played Ohio State, they played them a lot better today than they did 2 years ago. I mean, I listened to Corey's show and it wasn't play calling. It wasn't coaching. I mean, you can pick on a 4th down and 2, but that wasn't the game. The fake punt that
Sure.
are going for it that they didn't get. That wasn't the game. They haven't had a quarterback in 10 years. I mean, I thought Cade would be an improvement, and he is, but he's not $1 million improvement. It just I'm not here complaining. I mean, the Hawks will probably have a great year, and that's great for Iowa and everything, but they've got to get some horses. They got to get some receivers, or 1 or 2. It doesn't take much. A quarterback can make that team so much better. A wide receiver that can pull down a one-handed catch and run his routes and not get knocked down and that kind of stuff. It's huge. And then, it's no different than, NFL football. They talk about the mid-tier quarterbacks. They're overpaid. Why? Because everybody knows the only way you make the Super Bowl is if you have a quarterback. And that it comes down, it's the same thing in college, same thing in high school. You got to have a good quarterback. I'll let you go. I'll let you start.
Tom, would you think a little bit differently about your team if Ohio State continues to just steamroll other teams?
Well, so I was impressed with Ohio State today. Okay. Offense is awesome. I will tell you that Ohio State's defense is better than Iowa's. I mean, they're brutal. I don't see another team in the Big Ten that can beat them. Okay. Now, I think they're beatable. They didn't impress me that much that I don't think they can't lose.
Sure. No, I just say that because Iowa's been so successful running the ball. I thought that they would have more success running the ball. Caleb Johnson's numbers looked good, but he had a couple runs late in the game. They really couldn't run the ball.
They put a drive together. Was it after it was 21-0 and he had a big run? They had a good couple blocks and he had a good run before Ohio State put in the second team. He's a good back. I'm not saying he's great.
And I was also surprised.
You got to give him some holes.
I was also surprised that Ohio State's offensive line was as successful against Iowa's defensive front. I thought that would be one place where Ohio State would struggle and it would keep the game closer. But Will Howard, man, if I rewatch that game, I can't remember him having issues in the pocket. It seemed like he was standing back there and had all the time in the world every time he dropped back to pass. And they were opening running lanes most of the time, like deep, not gashes, not gaping holes, but running room. They were getting a push and opening a seam for their backs.
Yeah, but Mark, if I was an Iowa fan and you told me we're going to give you 2 turnovers and turn the ball over on downs in the first half, I would have took that before the game started. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Iowa screwed up in the first half by not being able to capitalize on that. Granted, they had a debacle in the third quarter, but when you're playing the elite football teams in college football, You cannot take advantage of the mistakes that they make. Do you understand? They're not going to make them all the time.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard Corey and I got together. He called a couple weeks ago because he had taken a little bit of offense on where I rated Cade McNamara among quarterbacks in the Big Ten. And we had a lengthy conversation about that. I think Cade McNamara actually played really well in the first half, especially.
Yeah.
He was not the problem. It was that I thought Ohio State would win the game comfortably, but I didn't anticipate 35-0 with 3 minutes left in the game. I thought they'd win by 14-17 in that range, and that it would be fairly competitive, but somewhat comfortable in the second half for them, but not like the game's a runaway and it's over. And I thought that would be because Iowa's defense was going to put more heat on Will Howard. And those two Ohio State running backs, they averaged almost 7 yards a carry today.
Yeah. Yeah, they seem to pick up 6+ yards every time. But I was impressed with Ohio State today. And I looked down the SEC, and I mean, like you guys were talking tonight, I mean, there ain't, it might be the Cyclones. They might be the best team. They might be in the playoffs, national championship. Who knows? But no, and then I think that's about all my notes I got down there. But I was impressed with Ohio State today. I really figured Iowa would play them tough, but then Ohio State would put them away. That's what my guess would have been.
Well, that kind of happened.
Yeah. Well, 3 turnovers by Cade McNamara. Just, I mean, usually that happens in the first quarter against Ohio State. And this time we waited till the third quarter, right? I'm just worried about the Big Ten's looking pretty weak right now. And maybe it's not, but I'm not real impressed with Michigan. Obviously, USC. I don't know how they let Minnesota beat them. I only seen the end of it, so I don't know how the whole game went.
Yeah.
Maybe Indiana's. I seen a little bit of that, and maybe Indiana's the team. I don't know. I hope they are. I like your Indiana show. Jeffries is running that now. I like it. He picked a good time to start that. I enjoy when he calls. I like talking about other teams. I mean, I like to hear about. It's like I talked to my sister today, and her daughter went to TCU, and she's in Fort Worth, and I said, "It's a good thing you had a high school football game to go to last night."
Yeah,
because they're going to be the worst team in Texas.
Yeah, and that's tough to do. Maybe the worst team in the Big 12.
Yeah. I mean, so it's kind of fun. I got a couple of A&M friends, the Texas A&M, and so it's good to chat with them. And so and I like to see Notre Dame lose, to see Will melt, in the post shows.
Yep.
I like to see that. But good visiting with you. Love your show. Yeah, I need to call in someday during the day, and we can complain about college football. Just complain about it.
You can call anytime, Tom.
What all's bad? Yep. Later.
Thanks, man. All right. We also have our guy John calling in. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. I want to remind everyone that let's see, we're going to be live with all of you at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So that's going to be 11 a.m. Eastern on Sunday to take your calls, because I know a lot of you, and I'm not talking to you right now, I'm sure you're in bed and you'd rather call in the morning. So I burn the candle on both ends. So we do the late night, then we turn around and I make it home from church to do the 11 a.m. Eastern show with all of you and take your calls. So we will do that in the morning. But we got John calling in. John, what's going on tonight?
Not much. How are you, Mark?
I'm good. What's the good word?
Not much. What is it with these coaches that get paid millions of dollars that just like, is it just coaching like the Alabama game? Is it like, okay, we had this huge win? You see it all the time in college and NFL. Like, I struggle to understand why you come off a big win and then you just drop a dud against somebody you should be blowing out.
Sure. Well,
What do you
again,
think it is about that?
I don't disagree with you because Alabama is a far more talented team and they shouldn't be messing around with Vandy. However, Vandy is a much better team than they've been for years and years and years since James Franklin was there. The way it looks, that no Vandy team in the last close to 10 years would have played Virginia Tech, Missouri, and Alabama as well as they did. So they are decidedly improved. And I am somewhat playing devil's advocate, even though I generally agree with you, just to say there are scholarship athletes on the other side. From time to time, I do point out to everyone and just remind everyone that competitive sports are unlike any other job evaluation that we have. If we go to a movie and the movie sucks, well, the actors and actresses, directors, producers, they got, take 1, take 2, take 3, take 50. They can keep going until they get it right. Like, we don't get to see it all played out live. If you've got a sales staff, they can all go out there and tear it up and sell a ton. But in athletics, somebody's got to lose. Even if both coaches are really good and their coaching staffs are really good and the players go out there and bust their tails and knock heads for 3 hours, somebody's going to lose. So somebody's a failure. It's maybe the only thing like it where somebody is going to look bad.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved seeing it.
I thought it was fun too.
I'm always one for upsets, except when it involves Ohio State.
Yeah.
Do defenses, when they play Alabama, do they just like seeing the kid just burn past their defenders with no over-the-top help or something? Because it seems to happen at least once a game where it's like, okay, we're going to leave this defender on an island out here against a guy that probably faster than anyone on our defense. So, I mean, that was a great catch he made. He's unbelievable. Like, but I know you said a couple weeks ago, only thing we really know that he knows how to run is straight. So I would like to see him run some routes. I mean, he kind of reminds me of I know you remember John Ross.
Sure.
But that's who he kind of reminds me of. Someone who can just run really fast. And that's pretty much how John Ross made, rose his stock at Washington. Yeah.
At the combine, but running the fastest time, I think, ever at that point. But Jeremiah Smith is a physical specimen. Like, he's a monster.
No, I'm talking about the kid from Alabama.
Oh, you're talking about Ryan Williams. Oh, okay. Yeah. With I saw the 2 catches he made, the one he made along the sideline, and then later they pitched it around the end to him. But and another catch that he made. I got you. Yeah, he's still pretty thin. He's only 17 years old, but he just runs straight down the field. Yeah.
Right. And it's like at least once a game, he's like, all right, 1-on-1 with a corner. Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't really see that other the receiver that made that really nice catch down the sideline on the right side of the sideline that got Bama down there. I can't remember his name. Bernard.
Jeremy Bernard.
Yeah, I don't really see him as a top tier wide receiver. So you'd think they'd focus a little more when Ryan Williams is out there. I wanted to also talk about Penn State. I know last week Illinois has a good defense. But now, after seeing how they struggled today, do you think it was more of Illinois' defense last week, or it's just the lack of being able to start off fast for Penn State these last couple weeks?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I think that Penn State has addressed their lack of explosive plays to a certain extent, but I think the statistics are misleading. So they showed a stat during the game today. Fox did, and I used it when I cut my video after the game, that Penn State was number 111 in the country in explosive plays, and this year they're 16th. Well, that's not accurate. The number's accurate, but they're not the 16th most explosive offense in college football. They just played Kent State, and they played whoever the other team was that they played the week after West Virginia, Bowling Green, which obviously gave them a game, actually. But anyway, they've taken advantage of it. Once they get into the Big Ten schedule, that number is going to come way down, because what we saw the last 2 weeks, today they had an 11-yard run, and they had no other runs over like 6 yards in 25 carries. Now, I know Nick Singleton was out, and he's their home run hitter.
I didn't know he was out today.
Yeah, he didn't play today. And they only had 3 passes over 15 yards. And that doesn't mean that they were throws in the air over 15 yards. They were total yardage plays over 15 yards. So, yeah, I think Illinois' got a good defense. UCLA doesn't have a horrible defense, but it's not good. It's not nearly as good as it was last year, that's for sure. But it's not. That's their best side of the football, which isn't saying much. But I think this was a combination of that Penn State's somewhat addressed their explosive play issues, because their offensive coordinator that came in from Kansas is really good. So I think he's helped them. I do think Aller's improved.
I do too.
But I also think they also have played conservatively the last 2 weeks, because they don't want to show much, because they knew they were going to beat UCLA. And they probably had a good idea that once Franklin saw Illinois' offense couldn't do anything against his defense, then, they won ugly and just got out of Dodge.
Pretty much just pounded them into the ground in the second half.
Yep.
I wanted to touch on Will Howard and then one other subject. It does seem like Will Howard's thrown how many? 3 interceptions this year?
Yeah.
I did notice something with him today. He sticks with his first read for a little too long than he should. And on that interception, I don't know how he didn't see that our receiver was blanketed on that corner route.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But he just stuck. He only looked at his first read and threw it anyways. So, and when it comes to the Iowa caller, I do think it would have been, if it wasn't for the 2 turnovers, it would have been at least a 2-possession game going into halftime. Because did they turn the ball over at all in the first half?
No.
I didn't think so. So I think it would have at least been a 2-possession game in the first half. I like how Ryan Day came out, or at the halftime interview, he critiqued his team. Normally in the past, you really didn't see him critique his team that badly like he did today. So I'm glad to see that. But yeah, I just feel like Will Howard kind of locks onto his first read a little bit, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that, because that interception, he stared at him the whole way.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that I would have come up with that, but now that you say it, I tend to agree with you. And that interception that he threw is similar in some ways to the interception that Dylan Gabriel threw Friday night against Michigan State, one of the 2 that he threw to the pylon, where I understand it's tough to play quarterback. And when you got 18 people flying at you and you're standing in a pocket, and I think what technology helped me appreciate how difficult it is to be a quarterback at that level was when they started to record the games with the camera that kind of hovers over the field, and you get to see behind the quarterback. And they would show where, they don't do it so much now, but they would show you where the players were positioned, like the receiver, and what the window looked like when he had to make his decision to throw the ball, and the ball was like cocked back in his arm, versus what actually happened like 3 seconds later by the time he threw the ball and it traveled and got there. I became amazed at, wow, what those quarterbacks can see develop before it's actually open. But on those two plays, the Dylan Gabriel and the Howard, there was no coverage to read. It was just man on man on the outside. So there was no confusion of like linebackers dropping or a safety coming over. It was just a flat out, that's a man on man. And the Iowa receiver had undercut him and had the angle, and you're throwing the ball all the way across the field. Your guy's got to be really open for you to throw the ball all the way across the field and not account for the closing speed of that player. So yeah, it was just a really bad decision.
Yeah, now that you brought up the coverage, there one thing I am really worried about that game today was how Iowa, because Iowa did a great job at disguising their coverages. Will Howard looked a little like that first, was it the first or second drive where I don't know how he got that ball into our receiver. Because the linebacker that was covering the flat was standing right there. And even the announcer said it, that it looked like that they kind of, Iowa kind of threw Ohio State off with how they came out look in a zone look, but it ended up being a man look. And Will Howard looked a little thrown off too in that first half. So I'm a little worried that, teams are going to look at that tape and be like, hey, maybe he's not great at being able to recognize, disguise coverages. I'm not going to knock him too bad. He did end up coming back and have a good game.
Yeah.
But
he played well, but just to kind of extend on your concern, also consider that he was standing in a clean pocket almost every time he dropped back to pass. The pass protection was excellent.
Yeah. And it also does seem like, especially today, now that they were calling run plays for him more, there was, I'm going to say at least 3 plays where it was a read option. And it feels like once he starts feeling himself a little bit, like, all right, now I'm moving my legs, I'm running a little more. He tends to misread that quarterback option and tends to try to, like the 4th and 1 that we went for when we did the quarterback draw.
Yeah.
Just run forward, dude. And he runs forward and then runs backwards about 2 yards trying to run horizontally instead of vertically. So, but like I said, I'm not going to knock him too much. I'm very happy with the defense. I know it's Iowa, but I mean, I think maybe I know Cade McNamara is not that bad of a quarterback, but you have a backup who's very mobile, and I do think a mobile quarterback with Johnson, that I think you could be a little more productive with that. I mean, you see what the Ravens are doing with Lamar and Derrick Henry, but I don't know. I just thought that quarterback, the mobile quarterback, might be an option. Not that Cade McNamara played bad. He did what he could. I thought that freshman, what's the freshman wide receiver's name for Iowa?
You're talking about Jacob Gill?
No, the other one. The one that caught
Bowie. Him?
No, I thought it was like Van Axel or something.
Oh, Vanderzee.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think he's a good receiver. I mean, he was routing up Denzel Burke all, whenever he got the chance. I mean, the route he ran right across the middle of the field on was it 3rd and 11 or something like that.
Yep.
And then he could have caught that one where McNamara escaped out of the pocket, but he just underthrew him a little bit. So, and I just wanted to touch on one more thing. The Iowa guy said that he feels like the offense is good enough to beat Illinois. I thought you were going to say something, but he seems to be beating his team up enough as it is. I don't think they have any chance to beat Illinois.
They're not playing Illinois.
I know, but he brought up how he's like, oh, we have an offense that can beat Purdue and Minnesota and Illinois. And it's like, yeah, Illinois, I don't know about that. Did you get to watch any of that Nebraska-Rutgers game?
No, I did not see any of
Okay.
it.
Yeah, I seen the final score of it, so I didn't know if it was just good defense or terrible offense. Because Dylan Raiola,
I'm going to guess. I'm going to go 75% bad offense.
Yeah, Dylan Raiola seems to cool. He seems to have cooled off a little bit from those first couple weeks. And then one more thing, I know it was last week. You guys were talking about who group of 5 schools would be to get into the playoff. And I forget who said it, but he said nobody would be scared to play any of them, whether it be Louisville or Notre Dame, or not Notre Dame, but Louisville or SMU or Boise State. I'm going to say this right now. If Boise State gets that spot, whoever's got a matchup against them should be worried, in my opinion, because that offense is clicking. Now, I understand they're not playing as much. They're not playing the greatest teams, but they look good against Oregon. They beat up on Washington State. Call that what you will. And today they played. I forget who they played today. It was it wasn't nobody. I mean, he put up a lot of points.
Yeah.
But I would definitely be concerned with having to match up against Boise State in the first round of that game, of that playoff.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's a joke. I agree with you, but I think that we're talking about the second team in the SEC or the Big Ten. I think that they would be a substantial favorite against Boise State, but obviously we saw them play Oregon well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What if that second team is Oregon, or that second team is, well, say Texas A&M and the SEC? Like, say Texas wins and somehow the tiebreaker goes Texas A&M.
Yep.
But I don't see that happening. I still think it's going to be Georgia in that SEC title game. They didn't look the greatest against Auburn, but Auburn normally plays them pretty tough.
Yep.
But there was one more thing I had, but I can't remember what it was. It was Missouri. Did you see how Luther Burden was acting on the sideline today?
I saw him after he caught the touchdown that got called back, and he was pouting forever.
Yeah. Like you're well known as probably the best. I mean, everyone refers to him as the best receiver in college football right now. Going into the year, definitely. So, I mean, he's got to realize he's going to be on TV. He's going to be on the cameras, and I understand he's a kid, and it's probably frustrating not having the season that he thought he would have after the season he had last year. So, but yeah,
it's a learning experience. There's adversity in life. These guys have to find that out. And like you, I'm going to cut him some slack because he's just a kid.
Yeah, he's just a kid. So,
all right, John.
But, all right, thank you, Mark.
Appreciate you being here, man. Have a good one.
Take care.
All right, folks, the Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. When you shop on Amazon, please, all of our resources here at the Voice of College Football basically could be remedied by everybody using the Amazon link. I am serious. If everyone who watched us used the Amazon link, therefore about 3 to 4, 5% of your purchases at Amazon, the dollar amount would go to us instead of Amazon. Doesn't come out of your pocket. It's going to Amazon anyway. It would come to us here at the Voice of College Football. It would change everything. So please use the Amazon link in the description section of the videos. And to show you what I mean, so there you go. Got all these videos that I do on college football. How about that? Well, if you click on this one, for example, then you go to the description section, and there we've got the Amazon link. There, it's right down there in caps. Grab that Amazon link. You click on that baby, and guess what? Forget about all this crap. Just go search for whatever you want. And keep in mind that that link, even though I pulled that from the Voice of College Football, bingo, it knows. Hello, Mark. It goes automatically to my account. Therefore, it will go automatically to your account. This has been tried and tested and true a zillion times, and everybody has provided me feedback that it works perfectly. It goes right to your account. Therefore, it keeps track of all of your purchases and does everything that you would expect it to. I guess you didn't see the second part of that little demonstration, did you? I don't know why it switched away. But anyway, there it is. Once I clicked on the Amazon link, boom, hello, Mark. So when you shop on Amazon, please grab the Amazon link in the description section of all the videos here at the Voice of College Football. We would so much appreciate that. Again, you have no idea that if everyone, even in our little community here, I know we don't have a large channel, but even in our little community here, if everyone who shopped on Amazon used our Amazon link, it would take care of all that needs to be done here at the Voice of College Football and would put us in a position where we could continue this for sure. All right, Cal leads Miami 35-20 or 38-25 with under 6 minutes left. So I'm going to go watch the end of that. And I will be back with all of you at 11 a.m. Eastern time right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by. It was a heck of a Saturday. And we will take more of your phone calls in the morning. College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, showstopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.